Certainly. My name is Erin Acheson. I'm the Vice President of Business Intelligence at ZeroEyes, and we're on a mission to stop gun-related incidents across a variety of industries and environments. We provide an affordable end-to-end security solution that's focused on proactively identifying guns before shots are fired and providing actionable intelligence to on-site staff and to first responders and authorities. ZeroEyes was established in 2018. The idea came about after our CEO, Mike Layev, whose daughter was upset following an active shooter drill. He noticed that there were hundreds of cameras in his daughter's school and wondered the extent of their use. Security personnel told him that the cameras were actually not being monitored at all actively, but solely used after the fact to assess situations that had happened, things like fights, vandalism, etc. So he saw a unique opportunity to take those existing digital security cameras and layer artificial intelligence and a human-in-the-loop function so that we could detect and really understand and proactively address illegally brandished guns or potential shootings. There's a different kind of key differentiators, and I would say that one, and the most important to me, is that our ZeroEyes Operations Center is staffed by military and law enforcement veterans. Most of our clients will never receive a false positive because the solution combines the most comprehensive AI gun detection on the market with a human verification component that is from a trained military or law enforcement person, and it's staffed 24/7, 365. That combination of advanced machine learning and expert human intervention eliminates almost all false positives and also ensures that someone is there to continue to provide knowledgeable, ongoing situational analysis with updates about type of weapon, movement of the assailant or potential target, and other verified information. Another important differentiator is that it's solely owned and operated in the United States. And our code was 100% created in the United States and has never been touched by foreign entities, which allows us to maintain and be the only company holding the Department of Homeland Security's Safety Act designation in gun detection space. It's such a great question because we recognize that there are really two critical factors when it comes to physical security in retail spaces. The first is budget, and the second is shopper experience. Adding more overhead to an already strained operating budget isn't an option for most retailers or most organizations in general. By layering onto their existing digital security cameras for a monthly fee of around $15 to $50 per camera, our solution is both affordable and extendable. In terms of shopper experience, providing an enjoyable space is really important. We understand that. Our technology isn't invasive or obtrusive. It doesn't create privacy or bias issues. It doesn't violate Second Amendment rights, and most folks will never know it's there. Yeah, so ZeroEyes is layered onto existing security cameras and designed to identify illegally brandished guns. It instantly sends images to the ZeroEyes Operations Center, or the ZOC, and it's the industry's only US-based fully in-house operations center staffed by military and law enforcement veterans. So once they identify and verify that a gun has been brandished, they will dispatch an alert and provide situational awareness and actionable intelligence, including a visual description, gun type, last known locations, to staff law enforcement as quickly as 3 to 5 seconds from the detection. We're not just providing a notification, but an expert verified detection and continued intelligence. It's invaluable to first responders because they have to act so quickly. There's a lot of misinformation that happens. So adding additional layers of security or additional security guards who are available to assess those threats, a lot of times is very difficult. So the value of adding not just the detection, but the verification and ongoing intelligence around that is considered high value by our clients. Yeah, so retailers are already responding to issues related to shrink. That means security personnel are mostly tasked with looking for shoplifters, employee theft, and things like that. Detecting firearms and responding to disputes adds another layer of complexity that many people simply cannot take on inside of a large and busy environment. So one of the things that we're trying to address is being able to spot those firearms quickly, and then ensuring that the people who are there and need that information have it and have it accurately. A lot of times we also notice that during any sort of either actual active shooter event or perceived active shooter event, what happens is there's a lot of chaos, a lot of misinformation, and people who are in charge of either moving people to safety or mitigating the event are receiving a lot of different bits of information or noise from many different directions. And so providing that confirmed and verified information is key. There's two different ways that we're really working to ensure that clients don't receive false positives. The first is that our AI is trained in multiple ways. We not only train the AI on real detections that we receive from clients, so as we continue to work with our existing client base, our detection image base grows. We are also have invested heavily in an AI green screen lab that allows us to mimic and create a variety of different environments. Those simulations, we bring in real live firearms in a variety of different types, even think like cell phone guns, 3D printed guns, etc., handguns, rifles. And a human walks around inside of this space, which is then simulated to look like a variety of different space types, and trains the AI. This training goes on all of the time. We train in high light, low light, rain, fog, different conditions to ensure that there are a variety of permutations that are exposed to the AI so that it can understand that extremely well. The second thing is the ZOC, which is, as I mentioned, our human in the loop. It's military and law enforcement folks. They are in there. They are extremely used to managing and understanding not just detecting a firearm, but how to stay calm during those incidents, how to ask for verification from other supporting members, and then how to accurately and efficiently relay that information to the first responders, client, and anyone else that needs to be notified on the ground. So our team is not just focused on providing our ZeroEyes solution. We're also focused on industry research and more deeply understanding the nature of gun incidents in our country and worldwide. You'll notice that I said gun incidents and not gun violence. We've actually pivoted away from talking about guns in terms of only gun violence. What we see fairly often is that guns are brandished, or that things are mistaken for gun violence, or that an incident that may be not an active shooter incident is deemed one and causes a lot of chaos, which also can then create loss of life or injuries, and can also create millions of dollars in loss for the organizations experiencing it. So our focus on ensuring that we can not only provide a solution that is always being continually tailored and updated to provide the most cutting edge option for securing a space, we're also ensuring that we provide the information that would help a retailer or any client prevent future incidents, because we know that if you know what types of threats that you're most likely to face, you can build the best layered security program to address them. When we look at retail-related gun incidents, it is astonishing to see how prevalent they are. And we understand that A lot of times when we hear about gun-related incidents, we focus a lot on schools or what end up being mass shootings. With retail, we see a lot of things that don't usually qualify as mass shootings. And so they therefore do not receive the same amount of media attention or the same amount of scrutiny when it comes to analyzing the overall impact of those events. That said, retail has one of the highest incidents of gun problems across all of the industries that we track. And one of the reasons for that is because, one, retail encompasses a large variety of spaces. It's also where most people go when they leave their home. They're going to a space that's either going to be their workspace, an education center, or something involving retail. Because of that, many of the incidents in retail are spontaneous gun violence. Spontaneous gun violence means that it was not a pre-planned attack that somebody thought about beforehand, got firearms or any other type of destructive weaponry, and then showed up and said, this is what I plan to do. It's typically the escalation of a dispute or part of criminal activity. When that happens, people pull out a firearm, fire off a shot or a few shots. Typically, that ends very quickly. In those instances where that ends very quickly, unfortunately in retail, almost 70% of the time, more than almost any other industry that we've analyzed, the assailant is able to escape and stay anonymous. They're not ever apprehended. That trend has continued to increase over the last several years. And we do find that to be, indicative of the next point, which is in retail, as with many industries, the majority of gun incidents occur outside of a building, in parking lots, in corridors, in courtyard spaces, and in these other areas. It then obviously impacts the people indoors when it occurs outdoors. People flee, people try to get into a space. And in retail, unfortunately, when these incidents occur, we see people looting, smashing things, not returning back to the retailer, and a variety of other detrimental impacts that these retailers have. I think that the first thing that I would say is that situational awareness of what's going on is incredibly important, as is understanding the type of gun violence that you are most likely to experience in your space. Active shooter incidents in retail are extremely uncommon. Naturally, when they do happen, it's very destructive and has ramifications for often decades. That said, the majority of retail gun violence is spontaneous. That does not mean that we can't do something about it. What it means is that you are likely to experience a single shooter incident that could be either de-escalated earlier without having shots fired, or could be prevented entirely, or that you may actually be able to apprehend the assailant. These things are extremely important when it comes to ensuring that you minimize the amount of profit that you lose or other financial things that happen. So let me give you a quick example of an incident. There was a mall during back to school time in Florida, and during this back to school shopping weekend, a woman was paying for her lunch in an eating establishment, reached into her bag to purchase to pay for her food, and instead of grabbing her wallet, accidentally discharged her concealed carry firearm. That single shot caused people to yell active shooter. And once active shooter, was being yelled, law enforcement, people all responded as if that had actually happened. Chaos ensued. That chaos then resulted in broken doors, broken windows, people looted, people were injured during fleeing, and retailers lost all of the business from that time. What happened after was increased insurance rates, lawsuits from people who were injured fleeing, having to deal with all of these various things. And the entirety of that event is estimated to have cost that mall over $53 million, simply from somebody discharging a firearm accidentally. This is why situational awareness and having a human in the loop is so important. Being able to say, we do not see an active shooter present on your premises. We do see a firearm, but here's what happened. Or we don't see a firearm at all. This may be a different type of incident. That relay between first responders, people on site, and the client helps provide a way to de-escalate situations or to reopen a building much faster and provide clients a place to come back to quickly. When it comes to escalations of disputes in retail, a lot of them are going to occur outside. And so because of that, I think that ensuring that you have well-lit areas that also appear to be monitored by video camera or by foot patrol is always useful. Now, that said, we know we can't prevent everything. And we also know that in many instances, involving yourself in a dispute can also lead to innocent bystanders or yourself being injured. So we never would recommend that you get yourself involved in an actively occurring incident unless you feel confident that you can do so safely. That said, if it appears that there is a dispute beginning to form and you have an opportunity to de-escalate prior, it's important to notice and to have people be aware that these disputes are what very frequently turn into gun incidents on premises. Inside your stores, when it comes to escalations of disputes or other incidents, again, ensuring that people know that there are people around and watching and present is not just helpful for those circumstances, but again, a lot of times that's being done to address shrink issues. We also want people to understand, hey, you know what? It's okay to say, hey, one, maybe calm down a little bit. Two, don't feel comfortable saying calm down. Say, hey, let's take this outside. Or hey, let's move this away from here. You have the right to ask people who seem to be starting to have a disagreement to exit your premises, and you should. So there are so many implications that occur when people either perceive firearm incidents or actually have experienced them inside of your retail operation. The obvious things are people don't feel safe coming to your space anymore, and you lose out on clients that would have been there otherwise. Outside of that, you may actually start to attract the negative type of client, people who want to be able to commit criminal activities, do other things on the premises, maybe are shoplifters. So once you kind of start down that path, you start to aggregate potentially people who are looking to do other nefarious things. Outside of that, the financial impact of gun-related incidents can impact your insurance premiums. It can impact the leasing things if you're leasing space. And it can also mean your turnover for your employees gets extremely high, and replacing employees can be difficult and costly. It also means you may have to pay people more in order to keep them there. So all of these things tend to expand out. In the example that I gave about the mall in Florida that experienced the back-to-school weekend closure, when you have to close down, if you, for example, serve food, any food that wasn't sold had to be thrown away that day. So anything that had already been cooked and then was abandoned because the facility was closed down, it wasn't refrigerated again, it wasn't preserved, all of that had to be thrown away. Those losses, without recuperating it from actually selling the goods, ended up costing millions of dollars. It's such a great question. And we all know that AI has, implications and use cases that are just now really being explored. In terms of retail security, we know that things like shoplifting, employee theft, and other shrink issues are something that AI will continue to explore in terms of what can we spot? How would we spot it? So object detection is really big. Things like behavioral patterning and understanding what a traditional situation may look like. So can we actually recognize a dispute starting to occur and how that escalates prior to a gun being brandished? All of these different things are out there and beginning to be looked at. Now, naturally, we at ZeroEyes want to ensure that we do not infringe upon anybody's constitutional rights and that we respect things like privacy and information that is personal. That, I think, is where the blend of retailers and consumers will continue to evolve what people feel the threshold for solutions is. So invasiveness of the solution, efficacy of the solution, cost of the solution, and those types of trade-offs are going to keep moving. And I believe that the bar for what we can and will tolerate will also continue to shift. We hear about duty of care frequently across a variety of industries. And I would say that when we talk about facing legal and financial pressure to implement a proactive solution, what we're also looking at is we're protecting people on site, we're protecting valuable property, whether that is the physical property itself or the property inside of the space. Creating a proactive measure that is adopted with ZeroEyes specifically is also preventative to not having to hire additional guards, additional monitoring. That solution, what you're really getting is kind of an extension of the existing cameras that you have. Duty of care is considered a responsibility of business owners in order to say, I am not doing things that are either careless or providing a space that I know is unsafe. Now, whether it's mandatory that people are forced to do this or is looked at after the fact, if an incident does occur that said you knew that this could happen and you specifically knew that these measures were available and you did not utilize them, that is when legal and financial things typically come into play. When we created ZeroEyes One, or affectionately called Zeo, we had retailers in mind. This solution was really created for folks who have a small number of cameras that also may be across several different locations. So, think about your chain restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, dry cleaners, cannabis sales, things like that, right? So somebody that may have just a few cameras, but may also be in either a space or a particular type of retail that's more likely to experience a gun violence incident or just any sort of criminal activity. This also allows people to sign up for a monthly subscription using a credit card directly from the website. You don't have to go through a long and arduous sales process. It's simply, hey, this is the number of cameras that you need. This is what we're going to do. We get it installed. And we also still do all of the exact same rigorous testing, which is we ensure that the solution has been installed properly and is operating correctly, and that the cameras are not obstructed and that they're pointed in the right direction before deployment and providing ongoing solution. There's a few different ways that we're working on the insurance side to mitigate financial risks for retail. The first is that our retail and overall gun violence research center has started to work on providing a parametric to insurers to be able to establish an amount of money that someone could be provided in the instance that a gun incident has occurred. Now, there's a gun incident that includes just brandishment of a firearm, brandishment and a shot being fired with no one being injured or killed, shots fired with injuries, all of these different things. And these then financial amounts that will then be paid to either the retailer or the school or the hospital, things like that. This allows them this gap amount of money to keep their business open during what may be a short-term closure or reestablishing trust within the community to make sure that people feel comfortable coming back, or to even hire, an additional guard for short-term support, etc. Another way that we're working on helping do that is when insurance rates are being established or reviewed, being able to show that you are proactively trying to mitigate or prevent gun violence on your property and providing that duty of care and providing a safer space. Many times insurers are willing to then reduce a portion of the policy if you can do that. And ZeroEyes is always happy to work with you to make sure that that happens or to support in any way we can. When you're looking at improving your security posture, obviously we know that physical security and any other type of security is a layered approach. Our team, because we do have a military and law enforcement veteran background, are extremely well versed in what those layers and options are and how they would fit into your unique space. With us, obviously, we are here to act in a consultative fashion, as well as to let you know what ZeroEyes can be deployed, where, how, and when on your premises. We can even come out and do site surveys, take a look at your space individually. You can do all of that by going to our website, ZeroEyes.com, and filling out a demonstration request form or a contact form. You can see a live demonstration of ZeroEyes by filling out that form where you'll be able to see how the entire solution works end to end. And you can see how quickly we can not just detect a firearm, but then provide an alert, a map with a pinpoint drop of exactly where the person is and where they're moving to, and continue to provide ongoing information.